Michael S. says, what is your interpretation of the fourth kingdom made of iron and clay in Daniel 2? I don't know, man. Daniel 2. So in this passage, what we've got is these four kingdoms. And so three of them, we know historically who they are. And I won't go over it all now, but I've got it in my my videos on Evidence for the Bible. I'll put that playlist in the description below, Evidence for the Bible. And in the playlist, I talk about Daniel chapter 2 and these three of the four kingdoms. And when I get to the fourth kingdom, right, we talk about like one was say Alexander the Great, and who's like this speedy growth kingdom and stuff. It actually fits historically, really interesting. Some skeptics will say Daniel 2 so fits the history up until like 160 BC that's one of the reasons why they think it was written after that fact. And I don't think it was written later. I have a video where I build a case for why it was written when the Bible thinks it was written. But it's interesting. It's accurate enough that they go, yeah, that's evidence that it's written after the fact. That's kind of a backwards admission of the accuracy of the prophecy here. However, the fourth kingdom is a huge mystery to me. And so I'm just putting it on your screen here, but man, the fourth kingdom is just, I don't know. I've heard lots of stuff over time. I've heard that the fourth kingdom is a revived Roman Empire. Others have, and they have these toes of iron and clay. And so this represents it not having the power that the original Romans had. And it's sort of an amalgamation of basically areas where Rome had power are being sort of brought back together. And then people even give a timeline on it, or they'll say it's the European Union because at one point it was 10 nations in the European Union. And it's like the 10 toes, 10 nations. Well, it's not 10 nations anymore. And so they don't say that anymore. And this gets us into the problem. When prophecy is already fulfilled, it's not that difficult to see how it was fulfilled. When it has yet to be fulfilled, and we don't even know the timeline. Like, I don't know if it'll be fulfilled in 10 years or 1,000 years. And you might be like, Mike, that sounds crazy, 1,000 years. If you lived in 1000 BC, you would also think it sounded crazy that it might be over 1,000 years before Jesus returns. I just want to recognize that. It could be, for all I know, it could be tomorrow that all the craziness begins, or it could be 1,000 years from now. I just don't know. That being said, what I end up doing is, and here's the problem with trying to predict unfulfilled prophecy when it's going to happen, yet to be fulfilled prophecy, is that all I have to go with is my current events. Like I don't see what happens 10 years from now, 100 years from now. I just see sort of the current events. And so what I inevitably do is I grab the text of Scripture. This is why I don't give you my answer on Daniel 2. I grab the text of Scripture, these 10 toes, and I start looking at current events on how this can be fulfilled. Inevitably, most of the time I should say, this causes me to predict current day things to be the thing that I'm reading about in Daniel. If you did this in 1000 AD, you'd be wrong. If you did it in 1500 AD, you would have been wrong. If you did it in the 1800s, you would have been wrong. If you do it now, why would I think I'm going to be right? I just don't know. So I'm not sure. Often prophecy is not written so that you can predict what will happen, but written so that when it happens, you will know that God predicted it. And it's written in such a way that you go, wow, Lord, you're still in control. God, you are sovereign over the nations, and in the chaos. It's interesting how prophecy often gives you the chaos and the horror of the world. It tells you these horrible things are going to happen, partly because when that generation who's in the middle of all that chaos and horror, when they look at Scripture, one of the reasons is they can go, God, you're good, you're still in control. Just as you told me this chaos and this horror was going to happen, you've told me about the glory and the blessings that are coming, and I place my faith and trust in that as well. So that I don't venture into this area. You're welcome to. It's fine to do it as a conjecture. I just wouldn't be too confident in your answers. And if you want to get humility when it comes to prophecy that hasn't been fulfilled yet, read stuff from the 60s, read stuff from the 70s, 1970s, 1960s that people said about these passages, and ask yourself how confident they felt. That might give us some perspective.